talk to you. I'm back once again with another movie review for you guys, and today I'm going to be reviewing Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Now, what is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 all about? Let me break it down for you. Ethan Hunt and the IMF team must track down a terrifying new weapon that threatens all of humanity if it falls into the wrong hands. With control of the future and the fate of the world at stake, a deadly race around the globe begins. Confronted by a mysterious, all-powerful enemy, Ethan is forced to consider that nothing can matter more than the mission, not even the lives of those he cares about most. Now, I'm a big fan of these Mission Impossible movies, in particular the latest ones that we got back starting in the 2010s, and I like Tom Cruise. He's a great movie guy. I love his mind when it comes to movies. He understands the true essence of cinema and the movie-going experience. He values it so much, so I'll always praise and admire Tom Cruise in regards to movies, always. And I loved Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, I loved Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, and I loved Mission Impossible Fallout, as I think that's easily the best one of this franchise. And I also do believe that Mission Impossible Fallout is one of the greatest action movies of all time. Just magnificent that movie is. So going into Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, I was pretty excited, and my expectations were massively high because, hey, when it comes to movies, you can rely on Tom Cruise, because he's going to deliver us the best spectacle that we can possibly have and the best experience sitting there in that theater watching this movie. And I'm very happy to sit here and tell you guys that I loved Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I think it is the second best Mission Impossible movie out of this entire franchise, just slightly right behind Mission Impossible Fallout, ever so slightly. But this movie is fantastic. And it's a satisfying movie as well. And the reason why I say it's satisfying, because this is a part 1 to a 2-part story that's going on, with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2 releasing next year, June 28th, 2024. If you didn't know, that's my birthday. So, birthday gift to me. But anyways, this is a 2-part story, and this is a very satisfying movie, because with it being a part 1, it ends on a satisfying note. We don't have a cliffhanger ending for this movie. Also to mention in regards to that, Tom Cruise himself absolutely refused to have this movie end on a cliffhanger. There's articles all out right now saying he wants to end on a satisfying note, even though this is a 2-part story. These are 2 different particular stories that's going on within these 2 movies. And and I really did love and appreciate that, because with this year, we saw a good influx of part 1 to 2-part movies. In particular, we have Fast X Part 1, which ended on a cliffhanger, which just ends to where it's not really fully satisfying at all. And then we also had Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which the movie is just spectacular. It ends satisfyingly for me, but it clearly is a part 1 to a 2-part story. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is the best example of how to do part 1, part 2 storytelling in between with 2 movies, with the way that this movie ends. And man, I honestly, the final act of this movie, that final train sequence that you see within the trailers, is well enough your money's worth. That final act does earn your money on that one. It does, because it is so breathtaking. And with all of these Mission Impossible movies, I am sitting there just sweating like, oh my gosh, how are they going to pull this off? And then when you see Tom Cruise, because he loves movies and he wants to provide us the best experience possible, it is Tom Cruise actually doing all of these stunts that you see within this movie. No green screen, none of that. He's actually doing it. He's actually fighting on top of a train. The motorcycle jump that we see in the trailer, my goodness, it pays off tremendously. I love how they captured Christopher McQuarrie. Him and Tom Cruise clearly understand these movies and this franchise, because Christopher McQuarrie, he took over this franchise pretty much with Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, and him and Tom Cruise have a great relationship with one another. And I just love the way that he shoots these action movies, with the camera shots, the angles, the emotion that we feel, and the adrenaline rush. to where we have a reason to care and be invested in what's going on. And also with that, this movie has a great story to it overall. And I love the way that they use the villain, because it's not just your typical old mustache twirling human villain. The villain of this movie is the use of AI. It's an AI entity. They call it the entity within this movie. And I love just how they utilize it within this movie, because you have this AI device that's the villain, because it's pretty much developing a mind of its own, and then it also has a human host that's going out doing its dirty work pretty much. And I just love how they use it, because with this particular device, it's also dangerous, in particular within the climate of the world that we are in right now in regards to the use of AI. It was very interesting just to see the way that they utilize it, because with that, you know, if it's the wrong hands, this movie raises questions of how we interpret the media, how certain things are interpreted, and misguiding what is truth and what is false. I loved it. I loved it so much with how they used the AI as a particular villain in this movie. And going back to Tom Cruise real quick, and Tom Cruise, he is so good in this movie, so good. And even though this movie, I must say, it doesn't really have too many of those big, gigantic action sequences that you may see with Tom Cruise and his stunts, like as opposed to Fallout's action sequences and stunts were a lot better. But with this one, the decisions that they do make in regards with this one, because you obviously have your famous Tom Cruise running outside sequence. You have all of that. You have your great hand-to-hand combat fight scenes, in which particular I love this one scene where it takes place in a tight alleyway between Tom Cruise and the two other henchmen, one of which played by Klementieff, who is just, she was a pure badass in this movie. I loved her. She was just a silent killer in this movie. She barely speaks. She's all action, and I thought she did tremendous in this movie. But going back to when I was talking about the scene, the alleyway fight sequence, it's so tight in the way that it's filmed and shot. You feel a little bit of claustrophobia of what's going on, and Ethan trying to accomplish the task that he needs to accomplish, but he's dealing with fighting two whole other people in a tight alleyway. The way that it was shot, the angles, the shots, the close-ups of it, and how it's all still clear. Easily with some action filmmakers with these types of fight scenes within that alleyway, you see some of them go straight to shaky cam. And this is not just a shaky cam. It's like just a little pinch of shaky cam within that sequence. But it was clear. It was some fantastic hand-to-hand combat sequence, and I just loved it. Outside the motorcycle jump scene, that was probably my second favorite scene out of this entire movie. And this entire cast in this movie, they all have tremendous chemistry with one another. In particular with the IMF team, where you got Simon Pegg, who's he understands his role. He's mastered his role within this movie. He's smart. You understand his intelligence. You understand his wit, his charisma. You feel it all, and he's absolutely hilarious in this movie. Ving Rhames, which I don't understand why we don't see more Ving Rhames in movies nowadays. It's probably maybe his choice. I'm not sure. But Ving Rhames, he's great in this movie, as always, a standout. And then we had new additions to this movie with Hayley Atwell, her character, which was very unique because she's pretty much a criminal thief, but the way that they utilize her character and the way that she performed as this character, you love her character so much throughout the duration of this movie. And her and Tom Cruise have great chemistry with one another, and their banter and their back and forth going off of one another. I thought those two were tremendous in this movie. Now, there is one particular problem that I had within this movie in regards to the Ilsa character. Rebecca Ferguson is amazing in this role. She's awesome. She's a badass. You don't want to get on her bad side. I love her use of the facial expressions that she has with the character. She has a very nice charm to her, but she can turn on that menacing, like you don't want to fuck with her vibe. And I loved her character. I loved her introduction in Rogue Nation. I loved her in Fallout. With this movie, she does not have quite much to do in this movie in particular. they don't give her all that much to do. She's kind of there because she's part of the team. She cares about Ethan, so she's there. But they didn't utilize her enough. And without spoiling it, the decision that they decide to make with her character, I maybe wouldn't have minded as much if they would have gave her more to do in this movie. Because I love this character so much, so I want to see more of her and hope she gets utilized more within this movie. But it is what it is. That's my one particular glaring negative in regards to this movie, because overall this movie is just, it's spectacular. It's an action summer blockbuster at its finest. Everybody within the cast and crew have tremendous chemistry with one another, and all of the action sequences are absolutely breathtaking and beautifully shot. The ending is satisfying. It's a this is a part one to a two-part story, and I just had a blast watching this movie in the theater. Right behind John Wick Chapter 4, probably the most fun pure fun movie-going experience in the theater this year. And overall, it's just a great movie with how they made it, because all of the original ideas and assignments that these characters normally would do in the Mission Impossible movies, they have to throw all of that out the window because they're facing off against literally an entity that they have not quite faced before. So they have to take certain measures within this movie and make certain decisions within this movie that they normally would not make. And I really do love that, because it puts them in a tight hold, because they're facing something that they're not fully prepared to do, and that everybody's after them as well, because it's technically an act of treason with what they're trying to accomplish in this movie in regards to the AI. Because if you let this AI device get into the wrong hands, then the whole world can get to shit immediately. In the wrong hands, the earth is destroyed, because it can manipulate what's real and what's not. And I just loved it. And overall, this movie is one of the best movies of the year. It is definitely top 5 of the year so far for me, maybe even top 3, I want to say. And that is why I'm gonna sit here and give Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 a 4 3/4 out of 5 on the fish scale. I just loved this movie so much, and I hope you all go out and support this movie, because Tom Cruise, he wants to give us the best possible experience, period, with his true, genuine action scenes that he's actually doing, which gives us a sense of realness that's quite lacking in a lot of these big blockbuster action movies nowadays. Because you see a lot of the blue screen and the green screen, and you can kind of notice it a lot now. In particular, I noticed it with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It just feels like everything was shot on volume stages and blue screens. With this one, it feels authentic, it's genuine, it's emotional at times, and the action is magnificent, which is why I gave it as high of a grade as I did. But overall, you guys, thank you so much for being here, listening to me talk about the movies again. I've been lacking on my reviews just because I'm moving within these next couple of months, so everything you're gonna see, this whole background, everything about it, this is not gonna be the same setting as we've seen before. It's definitely gonna be a lot bigger of a space. It's gonna be unique, and I'm pretty damn excited for you guys to see what's to come in the future. So if I'm lacking on videos, I do apologize. I'm just going through a big transition and big changes going on in my life right now at this time. But thank you all for your support. I cannot wait to be doing more reviews for you guys and having more videos out for you guys as soon as I can, get my whole moving situation sorted out, and be on the lookout for future uploads from me. If you like this video, please go ahead and like this video. Comment down below if you love this movie. What's your favorite Mission Impossible movie out of this entire franchise? Out of all 7 movies up to this point, comment down below, let me know, and subscribe to the channel because it does great wonders for me as well. But that's all from me, you guys. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your days, and yeah, talk movies again with you soon.